All right, after meeting with 10 Republican senators on Monday who proposed a scaled-down, targeted coronavirus relief bill, it now appears that President Biden and congressional Democrats will go it alone with a massive $1.9 trillion blue state bailout via the budget reconciliation process.
President Biden spoke about the need for Congress to respond boldly and quickly. He was very strong in emphasizing the need for a big, bold package. He said that he told Senate Republicans that the $600 billion that they proposed was way too small. I think it is his belief, it is Secretary Yellen's belief, it is our belief. If we did a package that small, we'd be mired in the COVID crisis for years.
Instead, we'll be mired in debt for years. Joining me now to talk more about Monday's meeting and the budget reconciliation the Democrats are pushing through is U.S. Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota. He is also a member of the Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee. Senator, welcome to the program.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you.
Well, Senator, tell us about Monday's meeting with the president.
President Biden was cordial. He was polite. He clearly had worked at becoming knowledgeable of what their proposals were. He listened. It was a good, very friendly discussion. We had the opportunity to lay out sequence by sequence the different portions of our proposal and the reasoning behind our proposal. He did not come down from any of his proposals or anything like that at all, but it gave us an opportunity to listen to what he wanted and at the same time to point out the differences that we saw and to point out that in many cases we thought we had a better proposal than they did because ours was targeted and specific, and we're really concerned about, this president will probably be the first president to see $30 trillion in debt in his first year in office. That's trillion with a T, and it's not going down from there. It continues to move up. And at the same time, we had some agreements on some areas. When it came to additional assistance for the vaccines and so forth, we didn't disagree. We know we want to make sure we have adequate vaccines for everyone in this country. We wanted to make sure that we had adequate testing. And if they found shortages in that area, we are more than willing to work with them. Where we disagreed was that we didn't think that you should further enhance unemployment benefits above $300 a week in addition to state benefits beyond June 30th. And we did that because we think a lot of folks really need to get back to work. And under the existing original proposal they had way back in July, a person in South Dakota could literally make over a husband and wife could make over $90,000 a year on unemployment benefits. That's not a good incentive to try to stay connected with your employer.
No, not at all. And then when you add to that the bailout of the what I say the blue states, the mismanaged states that have closed down their economies, there's no incentive here for not just the workers to get back to business, but for state leaders to pave the way for businesses to open back up.
No question, but that you can open schools and do it safely. You can keep businesses open, but use some God-given common sense. Look, I'm one of the guys, I tell people, wear your mask, but keep your business open.
Yeah.
You can do separation. And in South Dakota, we've done that successfully. And part of the program there was if you had a business that was shut down, the PPP, the payroll or the Paycheck Protection Plan, we put some additional funds into that to make sure that those businesses that were shut down, that they could afford to keep their employees on staff with them and to keep their health insurance and so forth in place. We thought that was all very reasonable. What we didn't like was simply providing an additional incentive, a stimulus incentive that, well, in many cases, we thought that they went way above in terms of the salary range that should be entitled to a stimulus check. In fact, I shared with them as a member of the United States Senate, I was very surprised when I got home to find out that because of my adjusted gross income, I qualified for a stimulus check. Gene and I qualified for a $1,200 stimulus check. And I said, that's not what I think the president had in mind, and I don't think that's what most Americans thought was someone with the salary of a United States senator should somehow then be eligible for a stimulus check.
Well, I think that's where I commend you and your colleagues for a targeted approach. I mean, I think we've lost sight of how much money we're actually spending on this over the last year as we've had one relief package after another, and we get into, the trillions of dollars. I think we just lose sight of the amount of debt that we are building up as a result of this. I'm not opposed to helping. I supported the first Paycheck Protection Plan to get out there to keep, to keep the engine idling on our economy. But at some point, we got to look at the policies that these states are putting in place. We can't do this forever.
Precisely, and right now, what we see going on is we think this economy right now will rebuild at in excess of 4% growth this year. Look, that's a pretty good growth cycle to begin with.
It is.
And what it appears is that some of the dollars that would go into a $1.9 trillion program would probably not be spent, but it could very well turn into a slush fund.
Yes. So it does not appear that the president is taking under consideration, or he's moving on with the comments based upon the comments of Senator Schumer, that they're going to use the reconciliation process. Although I've heard comments from Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia that he too supports a more targeted approach. Is there any optimism that this might be scaled down in the budget reconciliation process?
There may be some minor scale downs based on what the president has indicated to take into account some of the things that we pointed out, but I'm afraid they're still talking about a very, very large proposal, much closer to the 1.9 as opposed to the $600 billion that even the 10 of us had proposed as an alternative. And one of the reasons why we wanted to be there was we understand that if we're not at the table, we might very well find ourselves on the menu. And we felt it was more appropriate to come in and to try to participate and to be a part of a solution rather than having things done to a large part of the country that might not be acceptable.
Well, I think they have an appetite more for pork than senator, so, based upon this latest bill. I do think it is positive that this early on that the president did at least sit down with Republican members of the Senate. My concern with a bill this big, I mean, this is big, as you pointed out, that's with a T, trillion, $1.9 trillion, that this is really a pace setter for what we might see in this administration. And Senator Rounds, I think you would agree that some problems we face, dollars alone won't fix them.
You are correct. But let me just put that $1.9 trillion in perspective. If you look at what Congress normally votes on for all of the defense budget and all of what we call the non-defense discretionary, which is the operation of the rest of the traditional part of government, we would spend perhaps $1.4 trillion in a year. This supplemental is $1.9 trillion, $500 billion more, specifically for what they identify as pandemic relief, in addition to the $900 billion we just passed in December, the vast majority of which has not even hit the economy yet.
Exactly. It's in the pipeline.
Yeah.
That astounding. I do hope that maybe through this reconciliation process, as the debate goes on here in the next 2 days, that there might be some scaling down of this, but I think you're right. I don't think it'll get down to where it's anywhere close to what you and your colleagues proposed.
I don't think it will at this point, and I think part of this is an exercise in force to try to say we have won the majority in the House, we have the presidency. They're going to tell us that elections matter and that at 50-50 with the vice president, they're breaking the vote or they're breaking the tie. and they're going to accomplish as much as they possibly can before they are turned out of office in 2022.
Well, I think it certainly will happen. I recall back in 2009 when they pushed Obamacare through, when President Obama had the majority in both the House and the Senate, and 2010 brought a real wake-up call based upon the policies they had pushed through.
Correct.
Well, and maybe we'll see that again. Senator Mike Rounds, thanks so much for joining us today and bringing us up to date on your meeting with the president.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.